everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress. Thank you for tuning in and spending time with me today. I hope that your October is already feeling #cozy. Honestly, around here, it's still like super warm, so I feel like we're still in the summer, and I haven't even decorated my house yet with any leaf garland. And I don't have anything cinnamon smelling yet, so we're gonna hopefully change that this weekend. I think that's what I'm gonna maybe make something cozy like chili. I don't know, and then just dip into fall. So, wherever you are, hope you're feeling good and that your season's kind of winding down and that you're getting some rest. Well, I wanted to chat about something today that honestly I've been going back and forth about for like months of whether or not I wanted to bring up this subject because it could be seen as, oh, she's being a little negative, and I really don't want to, focus on that. I don't want you to ever listen to an episode and feel discouraged. But I did want to chat about the temperature of 2022 and some different themes that I've noticed with clients that I've never noticed before. And so I've been kind of going back and forth in my mind about this. And then I was recently messaging with several friends, listeners who have been sharing some of their stories. And I thought, I really want to address this topic. So I do want to talk about the challenges that have come with 2022 and some new trends that I've noticed with my clients and that I hear that some of you have also been noticing with your clients. So I don't want you to feel discouraged when you listen to this episode. In fact, I want it to be really empowering for you. I want you to hear that you're not the only one facing some new difficulties or struggles that you've never felt before in your business or you've never had to face before in your business. So I want you to know that you're not alone by sharing some of my experiences and, very vague stories, but just things that I've dealt with this year that I haven't before. And then I also want to share with you things that I'm doing to prepare myself, and I don't want to use the term protect myself, but kind of, for 2023. And then kind of a big thing that I'm planning to help all of us better prepare for 2023. So I hope that you can relate to some of the things that I'm sharing. And if you hear stuff that you're like, oh my word, that's totally me, please shoot me a DM. You can email me. There's a contact on secretsofbridalseamstresspodcast.com. And I just love to hear what you're going through because I think it makes us feel better and more courageous to face things when we know that we're not alone. So this all started late summer. I received 3 emails within 2 weeks from 3 separate clients, 2 brides and a bridesmaid. And, they were unhappy. And let me start by saying, before 2022, I had like 2 clients that I can think of that were like, oh my goodness, they were super difficult. I was really excited for the experience to be over, and I don't even know if they liked their dress by the end of it. You know what I mean? Because it was just like so uncomfortable. And that was like 2 total, like with my years combined. And then this year I had 5 emails from unhappy brides, and 4 brides and a bridesmaid. And yes, I've had like probably 150 dresses this year, but still those 5 emails were the loudest because they were the negative ones. And so like 2 or more in the beginning of the year. And then I had these 3 within 2 weeks. And one bride changed their the height of their shoes, and so after the wedding they wanted the length of their dress changed, and they didn't really own that they were the ones who changed the shoes, so the verbiage was a little difficult to work around and kind of put me in a tight spot. The other bride was unhappy with the whole fitting experience and asked for a refund, a partial refund I should say, and mind you, both of these emails were received after their wedding date. So, okay. And then the third email was from a bridesmaid who had changed their undergarments, and so the dress fit differently. The email was kind of like, ooh, but I was able to like work it out. And I will say that with all 3 of those emails, I answered them professionally. I made sure that the client felt heard and that they felt taken care of. And I did what I had to do to like give me peace to, put that to bed and just to move on from those clients. And I will say I'm kind of careful of like who I tell what I did to put those situations to bed, because, and this is really why I wanted to like share this episode, is because I feel like when we admit that like we've had rude clients or uncomfortable situations where like literally we just have to do what we have to do to like get through it and get over it, there's almost this like shame that comes with it, or embarrassment, because we feel like it's our fault that, number one, clients are rude, and number two, if we don't, dig our heels in and stand behind our business and like the great work that we do, then we're schmucks. That's like the opposite, because we're like softies and we're giving the partial refund back or whatever. And so I'll admit that maybe if I heard these stories from somebody else and then I heard that like they did give the partial refund, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's not fair. Like you should have stood your ground. But because it was me, I'm like, no, I'd rather just get it over with and, make sure that they feel seen and heard and just be done with it and move on. It's the end of my season. I just want to be done. So maybe you've been there, and I know you've been there, some of you anyway, because what happened, and this was kind of really cool, the timing was perfect. So when I received these emails, in that really short time period, I was feeling what I like to call the loser feels. I know I've told you about those before. They come into my life every once in a while, and they're really intense. And I was talking to my husband about it, and I'm like, I feel like, I know it's not me, because I can see like all of these other clients that I've loved working with, and I know that they feel so good in their dress, and it's such a positive experience. And then these 5 individuals in the whole of 2022, for whatever reason, they have like the loudest voice to me, and it's really hard to like not just focus on the things that they say about me. And so my husband, in his loving way, he's like, okay, but all of these people have had like weird requests, or they've done weird things, and then they expect you to fix it for them. So I was like, okay, that's true too. Because of course, our partners know every detail of every client because we have dinner with them. So he knew all the details of each scenario of of the big 5 scenarios in 2022. So I was like, okay. So I got it over with him and got out of my system. Well, literally the next day I received like a voice message, like a DM on Instagram from my friend Jessica. And she was sharing, she's like, I don't know what it is. I'm feeling really discouraged. And, I've heard from, I think she said she had 2 clients who had messaged her again after the wedding was already done. And she shared with me things that these brides had said to her. And, I just was in tears listening to her voice message, because the things that were said were just so personal and so hurtful. And me, as the outsider, I was able to be like, oh my gosh, Jessica, you're an amazing seamstress, and you're like super professional, and you're so kind and fun to be around. And for somebody to have it in them to write that kind of email, you kind of have to think about the big picture. Like, what does that say about who they are, And I'm thinking this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to also tell myself the same thing, because that's what friends do, is they give you the objective, the objective response, rather than like the personal, like, insecure feelings that we feel ourselves when those emails come through, right? And so she and I just had this really great conversation about the shame that comes with disgruntled clients, or no matter if we know or not that it's our fault or not. Like, I can confidently say that, like, yes, my difficult clients, I don't want to say it wasn't my fault because that sounds like a total baby, but there was a breakdown in communication along the way, and it takes 2 people to have a miscommunication, right? And so I don't necessarily think that their responses were fair, but I still felt like really embarrassed to even have like a negative experience like that. And so I'm gonna get kind of further in the episode, I'm going to talk about like what I think this all comes down to, and I wonder if it kind of encompasses what you've been experiencing too. But anyway, so she and I were going back and forth and sharing how this topic isn't breached too often within our industry, because it's like, okay, I don't want to look like an idiot if I have like difficult clients. And there's this myth that, you know, rude clients or disappointed clients are a reflection of us, of our work, of our businesses as a whole. And if we share that we've had like a rough experience, then it means that we're like dropping the ball. And on the flip side of that, yeah, I think there's definitely a way to at least start to control who comes into our studio. And I think that is directly related to knowing who your ideal client is and having all of your marketing target that specific bride that you want to work with, or specific client if you're like phasing out of bridal or whatever. And I love talking about this, of how even your Instagram post, your copy on your website, the quotes that you put under your Instagram post, whatever, they are attracting a very specific client. And so it's really magical once you can tap into that aspect of your marketing. And so just by doing that, you can really filter through a lot of clients that are going to potentially contact you. But that doesn't say that you have control over every personality that comes into your studio. I mean, that's almost impossible. We can work on our end so that the difficult clients are like the anomaly, you know, and I feel like for the most part, that's where I'm at. I mean, I have like 98% of my clients this year were awesome and I have great memories with them, but we all know that the negative experiences are the ones that are just like louder in the back of our heads, right? So, yes, there's a way to somewhat control who we see, but at the end of the day, we don't have complete control over every person that walks into our sewing studio. And it's really important that we know the difference between owning our mistakes and wanting to satisfy customers and making sure that they feel loved and seen, but then also being able to let it go and understand what's on us and what's on them, and being okay with what's kind of left with that, as difficult as it is. So Kate Wooden was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and she mentioned, how we have, as business owners in a bridal sewing industry, we're doing the physical work behind the scenes. We're interacting with the client at fittings. We're the ones, keeping track of our finances and our taxes and all that stuff. And we're also the ones dealing with like the complaint department. So it's like, whereas other, enterprises, there's this, tiered system where like some people take in the complaints or respond to the Google reviews, and then, other people are responsible for the client interaction or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like when we do have to do it all, it can be really hard to let the negativity go and move on and be our best for the next client and not be #jaded, when the next client comes in. So I want you to know that if you've experienced those type of situations with your clients, especially this year, 100% you're not alone. And here's kind of my theory behind it, because we've all had situations where we're like, oh my gosh, that was totally my bad. And I cringe when I think of how I used to, fix that type of alteration, right? We've all been there, and that's normal. It's great for us to get better in our trade as we, grow in the business. But then there's also just something to be said for, we do great work. We're communicating the same with every client. We have the same, way of sharing information and going through the process. And there are strange breaks in communication that we can't anticipate. And that's kind of what I want to focus on for a minute here. So what I've noticed is that, obviously our culture has shifted dramatically since the pandemic. Like, no matter where you work or what you do, it's like you see that, whether it's on social media, like how brave people are behind like a computer screen and how fiercely they can type when they're not like face to face with you. And also there's a shift in expectations from customers, like with what they consider customer service. But what the expectations are is actually beyond customer service. And it's more like, you need to read my mind and follow my timeline, even if it's really inconvenient for you. So, what I've noticed, and this was kind of the situation with not only the like the big five that I just mentioned, but just every client that things were a little like, oh, okay, like a little tense moment. And this is also what I'm gathering from situations that you all have shared with me, is that there's an expectation. Maybe a decision's made by the bride, like they order a specific size of a dress, hoping they're going to lose weight. They order the dress in a specific color. They want an element of, like a design element added to their dress. This has happened to me twice this year, okay? A design element added to the dress, and then once it's on the dress, they change their mind. And it's fine. Like, we all make decisions that we regret, and it's like, oh, that was a stupid decision. Instead of owning that as like, okay, I regret that decision, I'm going to change my mind. There's like this shift where they take on a victim mentality. And it's not just like, oh, a lapse of judgment. It's like, I'm a victim and this is your responsibility and you messed this up for me and now I don't want to pay for it. And actually, I think you should buy me a new dress. Like, that's never happened to me, but it has happened because that's what I've heard from you. Like, like these scary situations have happened with seamstresses. Thank you for sharing in my DMs. I'm going to keep all of you anonymous, but that victim mentality is not unique to the wedding industry. That's kind of what we're seeing. I don't want to use the term entitlement, because I feel like that's kind of like tossed around so frequently that it's like, okay, everybody's entitled, really, when you think about it. Like, I'm pretty entitled to my morning coffee, and if I don't have it, it's like, look out, right? So we all have a little bit of entitlement in us, but I think the victim mentality, and then, okay, I'm going to tell my friends and my family this situation and how I was really burned, and then they're going to kind of feed the fire, and now I have the nerve to send the email to, you name the wedding vendor, and get a partial refund, or have them fix the dress for me. And they kind of lose sight of what actually happened, and their ownership of the situation is like not part of the equation at all. Like, they didn't do anything wrong, So, and when you think of it that way, it's like, that is so much bigger than our side of the break of communication. Does that make sense? Or like, when we're dealing with that, like on a cultural level, like, of course it's going to trickle into our industry. And I don't hear it just from seamstresses. It's like, I have a local florist friend, and she had a similar situation happening where it was like, after the wedding, she was getting messages from this bride who wanted a refund after using the flowers in the wedding. I don't want to say, it's all about money, but I know inflation is really hurting people. And I think people are so aware of how much they're spending, and is your work really worth what I'm paying you to do for me? Because of the rush with like timelines, because of, dress production is behind. Some brides are getting their dresses delivered later than planned, or they kind of put off their shopping because they don't realize how long it's going to take for the dress to be delivered. And then suddenly their crunch timeline becomes your crunch timeline. And it's like, again, like, they're the victim and they need to be helped. And if you can't help them, like, it's your fault. And, as I'm saying this, it's like I said, it's such a small percentage of our clients who do this. So it's like, so I want to get on to like the good part of the conversation, because I don't want to dwell on this too long. It's like, literally for me, it was like 3% of all of my amazing clients were a little more on the difficult side. And like, oh gosh, like, let's kind of wrap this up. So, but for the most part, like, we love what we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. We love who we work with. Otherwise, we would have changed our career path. There's a reason why we choose to work with brides and work with people who we have a relationship with. It's not just like a one and done appointment. It's like we see them several times, we hear their stories, we cry when they leave, like that is the majority. So let's not lose sight of that. But for those clients who are kind of grasping onto this like victim mentality, or maybe they've had a really hard experience, just with work, with family, with their own social circle the past couple years, and it's trickling down to whoever they happen to be working with. Francesca DeSpirito, she said this on her episode with us, that when brides come into our studio with that angst, they've already walked in with it. So it often isn't us. It's like another part of their story that we haven't heard yet, but we just happen to be like, absorbing it, unfortunately. And that's what I can think of too with my like disgruntled clients. I know their backstory, come to find out like, oh, this is actually what happened on the wedding day because I heard, from other wedding vendors or whatever. And I know like in my heart that it's not me, but it still doesn't make it any easier. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. So here's what I'm doing a little bit differently. Number one, I'm just buttoning up my contract. And if you do not have a contract, I understand that. And, I don't want to throw shade on you, because I know for a long time I didn't have one, because I almost felt like, well, it's almost like I'm expecting something to go wrong if I give them a contract to sign. And I believe that mentality. So if you're there, I get it. And I don't want you to be embarrassed if you don't have a contract now, but I do want to encourage you to develop one, just so that you can feel confident in case anything like does kind of go sideways. You know what I'm saying? So we want to be, what is that phrase? Wise as serpents and harmless as doves. I think that comes from the Bible. And it's like, isn't that so true? Like, I don't want to offend anybody when I'm busting out this like prenup contract, right? But also I want to be wise, because I don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 months working with this client. And I want to make sure like everything is just covered and, dealt with preemptively. And it's also normal, if you do have a contract, to make changes as needed. So if you, started with a simple contract and it's kind of like covered you up to this point, it's fine to switch it up. You can maybe find a couple other seamstresses to bounce off your contracts back and forth. Like, my friend Jessica, she and I are now like going through our contracts together and refining them together. So that's been kind of fun. And I'm also going to send mine to our local dress shop and have that shop owner look at it and kind of give me her critique, because I think that'll be really helpful too. And it's normal to update your contract regularly. So if you do have an experience that's like, whoa, that was super weird, came out of left field, how did I even get stuck in that mess? Okay, go to your contract and add that clause so that everything is covered. If you feel like me, I hate I don't know why. The contract feels like a confrontation sometimes, but that's just my personality, because I hate confrontation, like literally to a fault. Okay, so what you can do is put the contract on a little clipboard, and then you hand it to your bride at the end of the first fitting, and it goes through, the price estimate or whatever, and then you say, okay, go ahead and read over the contract while I bag up your dress, and let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can sign that. So then, they're reading it over. You're like not in their line of sight. And then, oh, did you have any questions? No? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and book out your next fitting. And like, boom, done and done. Some people I know require the contract to be digitally signed before a client even enters the sewing studio. And if that works for you, then that's awesome. And then make sure that you do have an exit contract. So this is something that brides sign when they pick up their dress, in the condition that it's in, that they are, stating that they're satisfied with the alterations completed, and that they understand that, your company is not responsible for any changes in the dress due to weight loss, weight gain, pregnancy, surgery, change of shoes, change of undergarments, whatever, like you name it, right? And that's kind of like the, okay, we're done. And that is a clause that you can just keep adding stuff as things come up, like it's like that could be a very long clause by the end of, next year, who knows? But it's okay to button up the contract, find a way that feels good for you to introduce the contract, have your client sign it. If you're not into confrontations, come up with a different way to do it as long as that gets signed. So I'm buttoning up my contract. Another thing that I'm doing to make sure that my perspective is always in the right place is I'm going to start printing off photos of my brides. So I know sometimes we get those really, really sweet thank you notes or, flowers. And I've never received flowers, but I know you have. So some of you have gotten the chocolates and the flowers, and it's like, okay, that's awesome. But even if you don't receive a thank you note, once you receive those photos or once you see the pictures posted by your bride, print them off and have like some kind of inspiration board in your office or in your workroom of brides that you remember having a great experience with, and that it was like, I loved working with them, and I know they were so happy when they picked up the dress. And it's so important to have that reminder of like, why do we do what we do? Why do we love what we do? Why are we known as being good for it? And it's not just, or good at it, I should say. It's not just because, you sew beautifully, but it's because of that connection that you build with your clients. And for those days when you get those emails that are so intentionally worded, when people sit down to write an email, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. It's more than just a phone call, right? And you don't know who has proofread that email before it was sent to you. I think of that all the time. Like sometimes I picture people like, honey, listen to this. Okay, this is what I said. I said, dear Nadine, I am unhappy with you, or whatever. Like, like who are they reading the email to before they click send? Oh, I don't know if that makes me a bad person, but anyway, I lost my track of thought. What was I saying? So when those emails do come in, you have this proof that you're in the right spot, you're doing the right thing, and you have this like wall of clients that you have really special memories with, and they have really special memories of you. That's the important part, right? I don't know what it is about our brain, but we're really good at remembering and highlighting the negative things and like the intimidating situations and whatever, the stuff that makes us cry in a bad way. And we have a really good way of forgetting all of the good moments and just letting them be, overshadowed by the negativity. So I'm creating like I'm just getting what's a bulletin board. And I'm just going to tack up these pictures and have that be like, oh, I remember Amanda. I loved working with her. You know what I mean? Like, have that be your little daily inspiration. And the third thing that I'm planning is a little bit bigger than, updating my contract and creating this vision board. I'm planning a retreat, a Secrets of Bridal Seamstress retreat in January. It's going to be in Palm Springs, January 19th and 20th. So the registration has already been opened for our members. And it's going to be opened up to you starting October 10th. So like I mentioned, in our culture, we've just had so many shifts of like expectations and the communication style, like professionalism is kind of harder to come by, right? And so along with, these other things like your contract preparation or, remembering the positive things, those are super important, but it's really important to develop professional systems that are going to work for us in 2023. So, when you think about like, okay, what could the worst case scenario be, as much as we hate to think of that? Okay, where do you start? I don't know. Like, do I need to develop like a new like payment system or communication system? Ooh, it can feel a bit overwhelming. So our first day, we have a special guest who will be with us, and she has been an educator with some really big wedding names. I gotta keep it a secret because I don't want to spill the beans till October 10th. But she is an excellent wedding vendor educator, which I'm really excited about because she's seen things outside of like the seamstress industry, and I feel like that is what a lot of us need, is like, what are the expectations that other professional wedding vendors have, and how can we put them in place with our own, solo business. So she's going to talk about professional systems to have in place to protect yourself in 2023. And also that will help us with the projected trends that will be coming with 2023. And then day 2, we have more of like an introspective training. So after we learn all of these like big ideas of how to make our business even more professional and respectable, and that we can feel more confident in our service, day 2 is going to be all about the stuff that we have to do within ourselves to have the guts to implement these professional ideas. Because I know once we get home, it's like, wait a minute, I was supposed to do what? How am I going to do that? It's just me. What? So we're going to work through that on day 2. And in between those trainings, we'll have topical roundtables. So that's when we get to talk about like comparing our prices and how do we schedule? What does our booking look like? What do our like dreams look like in the next 5 years? And really kind of talk seamstress to seamstress, getting these ideas on like the nitty gritty how to for inside our business. So I'm really, really excited for that. And I think it'll just give us this refresher of like, wow, 2022 was really hard, but we got through it. And now we have all this new knowledge because we survived, first of all. And then in 2023, here are all these really amazing new systems and habits that we can implement to make ourselves like the best version of ourselves and make our business the best it can possibly be. And I think the most important part of that is the confidence that's going to come with those trainings, because when we work by ourselves, let me tell you, those insecure feelings are really rampant, right? Because we kind of have nothing to compare ourselves to. That's why I love any opportunity to join some kind of like membership or cohort or get other trainings, because it's like that is so nourishing for us to like kind of toss things around and go back and forth. So I'm super excited for this retreat. The registration is opening on October 10th, and I hope to see you there. I'm super excited. So that will be all the details. The speakers will be announced October 10th, and the tickets will be available then. So I can't wait. But if anything that you get from this episode, I want you to know that you're not alone if things are weird for you this year. And with every negative client experience, as hard as it is, there's something to learn from it. And I kind of hate admitting that, but with each experience that I had, it was like, okay, note to self, next time, this is what I'm going to do differently. And it wasn't necessarily, oh, I'm going to sew this better, or, oh, I was a horrible seamstress. No, it was more like, I'm going to communicate this until it is like dead. Because I like beaten them to death with this like information, what I'm saying? Like, or I need to make sure that they initial this particular sentence that I will add to, a contract or whatever. Like, those are the big takeaways that I've had of like how to better protect myself. And then I'm just going to do it. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to update my contract and I'm going to move on, and I'm not going to hold on to that for the next client, because it's not fair, right? We don't want to, once we kind of start holding on to those feelings, it just gets icky. And then we become those people who are like, oh, brides are horrible. And it's like, no, we love them. That's why we want to work with them. But also we got to be honest when things are a little difficult, and we have to, know that it's okay to like share those weird experiences, because you don't want to get the loser feels, right? Also, I'm sorry that I couldn't get it together a couple times today, but it's like, I hate when people feel like embarrassed a failure, especially when it's not a failure, and I think some of us are stuck in that. And I know if I felt that way, I know there's so many other people who have felt that way. So anyways, please let me know if this was encouraging to you. I hope that you're walking away feeling encouraged and not like, oh my gosh, I got to change my career. Why am I doing this? Get me out of the wedding industry. No, this is an awesome industry to be in. You're in the right place. You're already doing so great. And we just gotta tighten the ship a little bit, right? To prepare for 2023. And so if you've listened and you're like, oh my goodness, I had a similar situation, like I said, feel free to, you can DM me on Instagram at nadine.bozeman, or you can contact me. You can send me an email through our website, secretsofbridalseamstresspodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you had like a weirdo experience or you feel like a loser, I'm here for it. I'd love to hear that from you and maybe give you a little pep talk so you don't quit. Okay. All right. Well, have a wonderful week. And I can't wait to maybe see you at the retreat. I don't know. So October 10th, that date's coming quick. All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I'm back because I can't keep a secret and I have to tell you who the trainers are going to be for our retreat. I just can't keep it in. So for day one, we have Megan Garmers from the Bridal Masterclass. She is the director and founder of the Bridal Masterclass. She's been an educator with The Knot since 2011, and she's a marketing strategist and a business coach for wedding vendors. She's also worked with Aisle Planners, Aisle Academy, and Wedding MBA. She's been an educator at London Bridal Fashion Week. So I am pumped to have her, and I think she's going to really open our eyes to so many things we haven't even considered as seamstresses because of her experience in all these other wedding vendor fields as their strategist and marketing coach. So pumped to have her for day one. Day two, we're featuring Stephanie Booth, who you just heard from in our last podcast episode, and she is really going to help us embody all of those awesome new things that we learn about from Megan in day one. So Stephanie is brilliant when it comes to work and life, home life balance, changing ourselves from the inside out so we really can own our business in confidence and run it smoothly with confidence. And I know I've said this before, but working with her as my own personal mindset coach has changed my life so much. And I am so excited to share her with you and just introduce her to you. And I know you'll just get so much out of that. So day one and day two will be packed with these all-day trainings with these amazing women. And then don't forget about those topical roundtables, which will be added to the event as well. After the retreat, you will have 6 months of a Voxer support with the group that attended the retreat. So we'll stay in contact. Once we're super fired up after the trainings, it's like, okay, now what do we do? So you may need a little extra support along the way. So that's where the Voxer subscription is going to come in. We're going to have giveaways and swag bags and additional trainings and obviously wonderful conversation with people that really get you, because sometimes we need that little seamstress conversation. So, okay, October 10th, that is when registration opens, and I can't wait to see your name on the list. Okay, now I'm officially done. Okay, bye.